So we're talking about Chachma and Bina. And Bina is the river that needs to be opened, split, as a preparation, as a necessary preparation to receive and connect to Chachma, which although this whole discussion is to understand both the splitting of the ocean before Matan Torah, and particularly the splitting of the sea before the revelation of the Pnimius HaTorah, which Mashiach will reveal, which we're trying to understand what that means, in as much that Pnimius HaTorah is already revealed. So we're talking here about the river, of course, being Bina. So he's analyzing Bina. A simple way to frame the difference between the two is objectivity and subjectivity. What he's saying is that Chachma does not become Bina, doesn't mute and evolve and dissolve into Bina as an evolutionary process. It remains always this fundamentally distinct and apart. And that's the difference between objectivity and subjectivity. To be objective is a world apart from being subjective. And being objective doesn't mute into subjectivity. So what that means is, as the Maimon will go on to explain later, we already mentioned yesterday, that Chachma is akin to seeing. When you see something, that's purely objective. The truth of what is impressions itself upon you. The Chachma moment is a moment where the Koyach HaMaskil in the Nefesh, which just instinctively knows truth, because it is a true creation. And so it knows truth, whatever the truth is. It can be not necessarily a divine truth, but a truth. Everything is divine at its source. But I mean, even a truth, a scientific truth, an objective truth about the created reality. So that moment of experience is like sight. That's objective. The truth itself has illuminated at that moment consciousness. Bina is then the subjective self analyzing what it is that I have discovered. That's a separate garment. That's a separate process and a fundamental shift from objectivity to subjectivity. As the Maimon will say later, seeing versus hearing about something. When you hear about something, so you're processing, as I'm speaking now, you're processing what I'm saying, and you're all getting a somewhat different image idea in your head, because as you process, you're subjective. It's one word, another word, and you build the idea in your head. But seeing is the camera. The camera doesn't lie. Seeing is what is there, travels to the agency of light, and light is true. Oyer is me'ena moher, light faithfully conveys that which it is reflecting off. So when you see something, your eye is a camera, the mind is a sophisticated camera, you're seeing the truth, and that's objective. The point is that when we go from Chachma to Bina, it's not like again, the Chachma experience becomes Bina. It doesn't, it's a different experience. It's a new levush which the Chachma gets invested in. I want now, in Bina, I'm analyzing subjectively, because it's me doing the analysis with my language, which can change, with my explanations, which can vary, that which I had discovered as an objective experience at the Chachma level. That's the point he's saying. All right, so let's continue. That's somewhat clear? Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll continue. The bottom, I know you have whatever page, it's the second paragraph of Ois Dalet. Excuse me. V'zeh Gamkein, so having explained what we did now, the difference between Chachma and Bina, separate worlds. Objective world, objective truth, subjective analysis of that objective truth. It's a different world. So we find in Likutei Torah the following incredible episode or description of the Arizal's conduct, and that is, he used to doze, and his lips would move. And he saw in this doze-like state, in Parshas Balak and Bilam, speaks there of the prophecies and so on, to convey in language that which he saw when he dozed for those few moments, he would need 60 or 80 years. How do you understand this phenomenon? It's strange. How is it possible at the thought level, at one moment, 1 hour, whatever it was, to grasp something? 1 hour then translates in terms of articulation into 60 or 80 years. Even 60 or 80 hours would be something we need to understand what that means. But certainly 60 or 80 years. Now it's true. This is all part of the question. Machshav is a loftier experience and more transcendent and less corporeal and finite than speech. Speech is words, hardcore words and sounds. So that's true. We can appreciate that distinction. And that which a person has in one, skira means a glance, takes in thought, in one moment, so when he has to express that in words, so that breaks down to many details. True, we understand that distinction. But nonetheless, still, it doesn't explain 60 or 80 years. Thought and speech are comparable. They're in the same realm. Like a general principle that then gives rise to all of the manifested details. And moreover, and even though that the klal, the general principle, the general idea, the formula, is one nekuda, and then it breaks down so that different worlds again, and nekuda versus pratim. At the end of the day, they're related directly. The general principle spawns, as it were, and gives rise to the details. And moreover, the more the details are laid out and increase, we see this in the principle. We appreciate the principle better. We see the breadth and the greatness of the principle, the general idea of the formula. So this is all part of the question. Likewise, thought and speech. They're comparable. So, one is in the kuda, the other is, one is very transcendent, the other is much more, thought is transcendent, and speech is much more finite and differentiated and articulate, and it takes much longer to speak that which you think, an idea that you think about, aval, but still it doesn't explain what we just described about the Arizal. How is it possible that a machshava, that which a person entertains or grasps, at 1 hour, that should take 60 or 80 years? The 60, 80 years is totally beyond the 1 hour. And yet the two are connected. They're not, one world isn't beyond fundamentally the other. But now we understand, we're talking about Chachma and Bina, because by the Arizal, that what he was experiencing was seeing truth, not grasping it even. Not even thinking about it in the conventional sense. We don't mean machshava here in the conventional sense, that he was considering, thinking about, ruminating on. No, He was seeing. The Haino, meaning true that we're not talking here about this seeing in the sense of prophecy. He means this now because it's higher than prophecy. Chacham Adif Minavi. A Chacham can see more than the Navi because the Navi is experiencing. And because the Navi is experiencing a revelation of godliness, and moreover, that's why we see each Navi has his own style and language and his own way, in fact, of experiencing the prophecy in the first place. Some were more conscious, some were others. Others fell into a dreamlike state, and others yet even appeared to lose control of their physical faculties. That's because they're experiencing it. Now, when you see something, you're just simply transfixed. You're silent. They weren't silent, even as it were, in their experience of Nevuah, because what they're experiencing is a likus, as it comes down the level of Netzach and Hoid, namely a very articulated, relatively finite expression of a likus as God is communicating to them. Varizal Hisig Lamaili Yosef, but that is seeing, not so much experiencing, but seeing far beyond the articulated communication that the Navi receives.
Rabbi, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. No,
Are you
don't
sure
apologize.
Are you sure we finished Ois Gimel?
I think so.
Yeah, from what I remember, at least from my notes, I think we're at the bottom of page 31, the third paragraph of Ois Gimel.
Oh, I skipped some pages here. You're right. You're right.
I thought I missed it, but then I realized I haven't missed any of the shit.
No, you're right. We're at the bottom of 31. Okay, it's all tied in. We just learned now is not it just helps us. Because the later explanations are more helpful, as we'll see. Okay. Thank you. Two pages turned at once. And they both, start at the bottom of the page there. Also with the words of Yevon. That's what happened here. Okay, so back to 31. The same phenomenon. No, having said we did now about again the world of Chachma, the world of Bina. So we'll understand the following phenomenon. We see with respect to how the midas, the emotions emerge from Seichel. There isn't a direct correlation. It's not direct, it's the same thing, they're two separate worlds. Namely, just because you understand something doesn't mean that an emotion is engendered as a result of that. You can understand the most terrifying thing, and it's just it can be just information stored in your head, or the most tender, beautiful, loving thing, and it still doesn't mean that you're moved by it. Ella, these bonan is dafke, but not just the seichel, but you got to think about it. There's got to be these bonan. She's talking about the das, and ultimately, which is the link. Das is not the seichel anymore. Das is when you think about the subject matter with a personal orientation. That's what das is, when you connect to it. It's not part of the intellectual process per se. So it has to be his bonus. The control, she's burning Yosef, but he when he thinks about that which he has learned and entertains it in his mind with all kinds of explanations and many letters of thought, thinking about it a lot. So it's only that, it doesn't really add to the etzem haseichel, but only that way, only this way will the emotions be aroused. The explanation is the lechedin and why. Why wouldn't it be this, as we speak, this cause and effect? If you understand something, the heart should be moved. We know that seichel is the cause that gives birth to midas. There should be a direct correlation. As soon as you understand, the human being should naturally be moved. If he understands that something is good, as it's So that should naturally result in the objective understanding. Keyword, objective understanding, that should result with, one would think, that he be moved with a midah of ava, love and chesed for that thing. In other words, he wants to draw close to it. And likewise, in gvura, if you understand that something is not a good thing, that should naturally arouse a sense of dread and awe. So these bonan is dafke, why this middle stage? Just objectively knowing about something doesn't move me. I've got to think about it. I've got to personalize the idea. And that's because they're two different worlds. And again, the simple template to understand the differentiation is objectivity and subjectivity. Seichel is objective, so there's this truth. What does it have to do with me? Nothing necessarily. And midas is all about how I moved. And to be objective, and to go from the objective experience to a subjective experience is not a natural evolution. It's a decision. I'm going to think about this and be moved by it. And if I don't think about it a lot, and I've learned it and stored away and filed it away in my memory, that's where it will remain, and the heart will not be moved. So he goes on to say, because intellect and emotion are two separate worlds. Of course, emotions are far more subjective than bina is, but they both share that truth. Aim habonim smecha. Aim, which is bina, produces the bonim, the children, the emotions. That's true in general of women, that in any involvement, in any case, they will naturally get far more personally involved, subjectively, as opposed to the classic male that, he saw what happened and moves on. That's, by the way, I just mentioned here, it's good for you to know that a woman can be a witness. So, of course, that sounds on the surface to be offensive and a put down. But the answer is, on the contrary, it's the maila. Because to be a witness means just to be an objective viewer. And a woman who was observing a case of whatever, of an argument, or whatever the case may be, she naturally she's bina. She's naturally just not an outsider watching this, but is moved by it, gets drawn into it, and wants to help and make a difference. So she naturally loses this objectivity that's required to be the removed witness. And that's the maila. She's part of the solution, not the objective observer, cold and detached. She's the natural nurturer who gets engaged and involved. And that's why ultimately it's the women that change the world, because changing the world is not about theorems and ideas. It can start there, but it's all about empathy, being involved, and making the change on the ground. That's the unique property of the woman, and that's bina, and that's malchus as it translates into action. That was just an aside, a related aside. So he goes on to say, intellect is cold, and isyashvus means settled, unmoved. Midas and bispilus, hislavus veregesh, and midas are, hispilus means moved. Hislavus means to literally inflamed, literally veregesh and feeling. So they're two opposite worlds. They are opposite. And he calls man shemeir haseichel, as long as the person is just at the world of intellect, he actually is midas. That's something else now, by the way. This is a related point he's saying now. That when he's in the world of seichel, even the isbonenus, there's no emotion there. The emotion will come as a result. So through these bonus of bina, she the vusham mailim on the kudas achokma. Getting back to what we were saying now, that bina therefore is in you the vush, where the objectivity of chokma is concealed, the objective truth, that experience is no longer. We've moved away from that objective sight, as we already started to learn about from the next place dalit, and now it's in the world of of me and my take and my understanding of it, So then midas can be born. And the Ozdavke Efshei Mitzias and midas only then when we go from Chachma to Bina, that's these abundance in the world of Machshava, etc. So then a midas, which is the real me, then I can really be moved by the subject. That's midas are the ultimate subjectivity. That's me, how I feel. Therefore, the more these the more the bina, the Rabbi has with more explanation, the more letters, the more it comes home to me, the more my heart will be moved. As a that will inflame and create a deeper and stronger emotional response. Because what's the conclusion? Because the more I descend or I operate on the world of his bodiness, the more the objective cold world of seichel is eclipsed, and therefore allowing for me, my emotions to emerge and be affected. And the more the world of seichel recedes and is concealed, that's that objective truth of what happened, the facts, the more I move away from simply the cold facts to what these facts mean to me, the more I move away from the world of facts to the world of what it all means to me, then the midas will emerge in ever more powerful way.
But Rabbi,
yeah,
how the distinction he seemed his Bainanus he's saying is in Bina, so how is that not seicha at the end of the day?
I think it's relative. It's not pure seicha relative to chachma. It's relative. Why? Because pure seichel is sight, is the objective truth, and bina is my words, my language. So, relatively speaking, we speak seichel here, it means pure seichel.
Okay. So his point in this here is more like machshava, like in the previous ice, so he's making the distinction. Machshava is the levush for bina.
Yeah. This is bina invested in machshava, bina slash das. This is bina slash das. The truth is, das is the next step. Bina is just analyzing the consequences of the idea and thinking it and all of the details of it. And even there, it doesn't have to move the midas. And then, but then the next stage, das can't exist without bina. Das is applying it to the self, but that can't work before the self has understood it in the self's language, and that's bina. And the more my language and my explanations are entertained and developed, the more it can be applied then, and will apply if there's the das property to the self, and the midas will be moved. So when he says seichel here, it means the pure and the kudus ha-seichel, and that's chachma. Again, if we just remember, objective, subjective. Bina machshava is subjective. No one thinks about the same idea, analyzes in the same way, uses the same language, etc. But the chachma level, that's relatively speaking a common experience, because chachma is not my take on the truth, but the truth welling itself up and illuminating the mind. For more details, we learn Chassidus. How does the chachma thing work? Where does it come from? So chachma itself is sparked by rotzen. I want to know the truth. If I'm struggling with the subject, I'm just not getting it. It's just, it's a true subject. It's a true thing. And I got a problem. So if there's a strong desire for the truth, then within the nefesh, deep within the nefesh, which instinctively knows and acknowledges and is drawn to truth, it'll discover it. We'll discover that. And then this eureka moment of, oh, I got it. But I'm just saying, it doesn't come in a vacuum. That itself is born from the rotzen and the deeper levels of the nefesh. And what's the rotzen here? The truth. I want to know what the truth is. And then comes bina. Once that truth has been discovered, chachma is this discovery moment, this eureka moment. Then comes bina as I personally calmly sit down and begin to analyze and think about the discovery that I've seen on this more sight level. I saw it. Now I begin the process of breaking it down and understanding it. And the more I do that, the more I can engender an emotional response, because I've already moved from the objective experience to the subjective experience. Bin starts already the process of subjectivity. It's my language, my words, my analysis of this truth and its various applications, etc., etc. The more I do that, the more that can engender there an emotional response. Taking ownership, to use a common parlance of the idea.
Are you saying that you always need machshava, to decipher from chokhmah into bina, and from bina into midas?
Yeah. Machshava is the tool
So,
there. Personal language, etc. is the.
You need machshava to go from.
Say that again.
You need machshava to go from these baininus sabina into midas.
Yeah, that's das. Is thinking about it a lot.
I'd always thought the mashal you once gave of, your child is going away.
Your what?
Your child is leaving, going away. You can be aware of it. You can think about it. You can buy the ticket. You can drive them to the airport, and it's all within the realm of your own personal experience until you say goodbye, and then the floodgates open. It flies into a midas. And
that's true. What that's talking about is that once the midas are there, you love your child, and you're experiencing. But when you put it in dibur, that's the power of dibur. Once an emotion is expressed in dibur, and for that matter, not just an emotion, but even an idea, so it intensifies, and this is a whole different subject. How dibur, the paradox, the dibur is really all the way down, external. If machshava is an external levush to the chokhmah, dibur is even more external. And yet, paradox, when you get it down into words, all of a sudden it draws on the etzem nefesh, and the midas get enhanced, and it changes everything. That's the whole paradox continuously in Chassidus, that the lowest expression in the end, which would appear to be only external, and I'm just saying it because I felt it along anyway, yet the Oisis HaDibur are rooted very deeply in the etzem nefesh. That's another dimension. So that's dibur now, the power of speech.
Thank you.
That's
sorry for interrupting, Chaim.
What's that?
I said, thank you. Sorry for interrupting, Chaim.
Good. You're basically saying that wherever from any level, whether from chokhmah to bina, or from bina to seichel, from bina to midas, and from midas into action, you're going to always need the tool of machshava. You're always using it.
For sure. But that's not the emphasis. The emphasis here, the Maimon wants to say is that these are not natural evolutionary processes, ultimately. I mean, in the big picture it is, seichel, ilul, va'olol. But as we analyze it, there isn't one doesn't morph into the other, because they're fundamentally different experiences. Objectivity, if you're truly objective, it's a contradiction to being subjective at the same time. It's either objective or subjective. They're two different worlds. So what happens when you go from chokhmah to bina, chokhmah remains. That experience remains in what it was. It hasn't become something else. It's bina entertaining chokhmah. That chokhmah remains. That experience remains. It's kind of a memory that the person has. You can never really relive it, but it remains as a memory and as a impression in consciousness, as a moment of subjective discovery that is not what bina is. Now, you're just saying that bina operates in machshava. No, it's not like, by the way, chokhmah doesn't operate in machshava too. Where do you have this, if not on your thought? But it's a different level of thought, as we learned a few maamorim ago. Machshava dumim da'ak, it's a different level of classic machshava, for which the river is the metaphor. It's something far deeper. It's the mayan, as he goes on to say, the source, the spring itself. Everything happens in consciousness. But at the level of chokhmah, there's no language. There's no language, there's no words. There is thought. Thought means, you're thinking. But it's a very elevated level of thinking It's seeing more than classic thinking, as he goes on to say, we started this morning. So again, all the words that we taught, let's not get lost in space here. In the words, the Nikudi wants to say is that Chachma, even though it leads to Bina, and Seichel, even though it leads to Midas, they're separate, fundamentally separate worlds. And one will produce the other, but one doesn't evolve into the other. They remain always distinct and separate. Objective, subjective are two different worlds, contrary worlds even. And that's why, all to explain at the end, why you have to have the opening. It's got to be opened up. The Nor is got to be opened up in order to experience the purity of Chachma. The purity of a likus as a likus is, not as I understand it, or as it's filtered through my personal take and view and position and standpoint. It's got to open up. That's where all this is going. And then the different levels within that. That's all to explain what kind of Pnimius HaTorah what Mashiach reveals. What level of Pnimius HaTorah, what we have now and what we have when Mashiach comes. That's where we're going here. Right? והמשכילים, יזהירו.